Okay, welcome to our Wednesday meeting. It's February the 3rd, 2021. Welcome to all of our members from all over the United States and throughout the United States and Canada, and also from England and Australia. This meeting is every Wednesday through June 30th at 11:30 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. You must be a member of Naples Mac User Group to attend our meetings, and this is primarily for Zoom security. We have 44 weekly meetings a year. The classes have begun. They're through March the 27th. Members are $15 and non-members are $24. The class in 2 weeks is going to be by Jim Corsica, and it's going to be entertainment and streaming. And make sure you sign up for this class. It'll be a very, very enjoyable, entertaining class. And people that have taken it over the years loved it. The class for next Saturday is Maryland. Maryland will be back with the second OS class. This one, it's on the iPad. The previous one was on the iPhone. There are some differences. There's a separate OS now for the iPad. And there's quite a few things that you can do on the iPad that you cannot do on the iPhone. So these two classes sort of work together. So if you were at the previous class, it's a pretty good idea to sign up for this one. Here are the rest of the classes. Let me just go back. Don't forget, we had a problem with the first class. Our instructor became ill. We had to change instructors and change the date. So the Zoom class will be on March 20th. Congratulations, by the way, to all of our members for really actively partaking in our classes. We're going to have a banner season, the best ever. And to celebrate that, we are going to offer a free bonus class, which is the same length as all of our other classes. We will also offer you a free Take Control book that the speaker at the class has written and authored, a free video of the class, which we always give you. And it's Saturday, the March the 27th, and it's for Naples MUG members only. The book and the subject is Managing Your Files by Jeff Carlson. Jeff Carlson did a meeting for us, I think, back in September. He was well received by our members, and he has agreed to come back and do this class. And the way you sign up for the class is you send an email to Eckert. Here's his email address, and you type in the subject area bonus class. Very important. The instructor, like I said, is Jeff Carlson, an author of the book. Here's a picture of Jeff. You can remember him from a previous meeting he did on Luminar. The guy behind the scenes and that makes all of this come together and work is our Zoom genius and class registrar, Eckert. Thanks for all your hard work and patience. Today's meeting, or no, not today's meeting, but next week's meeting. Next week's meeting is by Mike Wozniak, and I asked Mike to say a few words about this meeting so that you would better understand exactly what this meeting is about.
Thank you, George. Hi, everyone. So my meeting is aimed at photographers in the group, and I prepared this talk because when I switched to digital, which is 21 years ago now, I was really, really bothered by the fact that no matter how good my colors looked on my monitor, when I had prints made at labs, they never looked anywhere near as good. And I also discovered that if I shared images with friends or family, sometimes they didn't look good on their monitors. And all of this happened because I wasn't using a color managed workflow. And so my little presentation is about how you can modify the colors on your monitor so that they always match everybody else's. It involves a bit of hardware. You can see a picture of it there. Not wildly expensive, but if you're really serious and passionate about your photography, color management is a really, really essential part, or should be a really essential part of the workflow. It's not as dry as it might sound. I have a lot of lovely optical illusions to share with you to explain better how it works. But yeah, that's me and next week.
Well, thanks, Mike. And by the way, this has been a frustration of mine over the years, and I can't wait to the meeting, because whenever I have over the years printed pictures, which I try not to do very often because of this problem, and when I send pictures out, I often look at them when I'm with my kids at their houses or homes and friends, and they're not what I thought the picture looked like on my computer. And so this is a very interesting subject. And if you can conquer this, you've made a great step forward, because everything we look at on our monitor looks damn good. And then when we share it, it's not quite what we looked at. Today's meeting is Ed Evans. Ed is doing one of his first meetings, a Q&A meeting. He's been asking me now for over 10 years if he could do a meeting. I finally thought he was ready. No, actually, it was the other way around. I've been asking him over 10 years. But anyway, this is Ed's meeting. Welcome aboard, Ed, and it's all yours.
Thanks, George. George is due to a little bit of exaggeration from time to time, like 10 years. I also don't want to get sued for any false advertising. There was some mention in one of his earlier announcements that I'd been working with a Mac for 40 years, and you know that the Mac hasn't been around for 40 years. It's only 37. So we've got a couple of years to go on that. But anyhow, I will attempt to get your questions answered. I did get just a few questions the past week. I was afraid it might be just 2 or 3, and I'd have to do some dog and pony show, but I guess not. I guess we're going to have some things to talk about, and I hope we don't run out of time, and I hope we don't bore you with anything. I'm not George, and I'm not Jerry or Mitch or Marty or any of those experts that have talked so many times on Q&A things. So if I'm wrong, or if you have an additional question, raise your hand, just put a chat message in, and we'll try to get it squared away. So without any more interruption, I'm going to share my screen, I hope, and get into it. I'll bring up the right stuff here, and I'll put it in. There's that thing in the way again. Play mode here. Okay. I hope that works well for us. I may not want to see quite so many faces over on the right-hand side of my screen. I can deal with that. Maybe I can't. All right. Anyhow, the questions started out being somewhat in order of a similar topic, but then we had enough variation that that's not going to hold true all the way. So the first question I've got here, basically, you've got the green stuff there. It says contacts on my laptop aren't the same as on my phone. It was a much longer question than that. I have an iPhone 11, iOS 14.3. I've noticed recently the contacts on my laptop aren't the same as on my phone, and my wife is seeing this too. And we're saying, what could be causing all of that? So my first question back at you is, okay, are both logged in both the phone and the laptop logged into the same iCloud Apple ID? The answer is probably yes, but if we're logged into different Apple IDs, then your contacts aren't going to be in agreement. And then the other thing is contacts checked for iCloud? So when you look at the iCloud settings on either the phone or the computer, make sure that contacts is checked in both places. That way it will synchronize these things. And make sure that all are in iCloud or Google or AOL or whatever you're using for your main thing. But make sure they're all the same. If you look at the sample I have over here, you got the iCloud stuff. We've got the On My Mac stuff. If you've got On My Mac, they definitely aren't going to agree because they don't get synchronized with anything. And if you've got multiple choices there, you might have iCloud, On My Mac, AOL, Google, depending on how many different email accounts you have. But make sure you selected the same thing for everything. That should take care of squaring things up so that you've got the same contacts in both places. All right, also, in the topic of contacts, the question, again, much longer than what I'm putting in front of you here, but for some reason I have multiple contact entries in my contacts folders on my iMac. Is there a program that will enable me to eliminate the duplicates and merge the data files into one address? Well, yeah. I had experimented with one of these a few years ago and it worked pretty well. And I started to play around with it again. And yeah, it still kind of works pretty well. It's a little scary. But then I went digging a little further and it turns out that Apple's taking care of this. By the way, back to what I said in the prior question, look for contacts in multiple places. That's a potential area for getting duplicates. If you're syncing your contacts with both iCloud and Google, for example, you may wind up with the same ones in both. But really, if you go down into your contacts app, first you back up your contacts. So there's an opportunity in the contacts app in the Mac to do a backup, to save it as a contacts archive. And then under cards, contacts, cards, I'm sort of highlighting out contacts, cards, look for duplicates is a function that they provide. And I tested it and it works pretty well. So it'll go through and it'll say, we've got so many there and you want to merge them. You say yes, and then it'll merge them and it'll put them all together. And I found that to be maybe the safest thing you can do. And you have created a backup for yourself in case something goes haywire with it. So I think that works like a pretty good way to get your contacts put together. It does merge multiple addresses. If you've got notes in different places, it'll merge the notes. And I think you'll be satisfied with the results. If not, you can fall back to your backup that you created. And there's a question that says, let's talk about the contact problems. Okay. Basically, putting in people have been complaining about sorting, about groups, about duplicates, and so on. And I can understand some of it. Sorting, if you look here on the side over here, this is from the general preferences for contacts. And the first thing you have is show first name before last name, or show first name following last name. You pick that, and that's how it's going to show up in your contacts list. Then how do you want to sort it? Do you want to sort it by last name? That's what I would normally do, but some people might prefer to sort by something else, but you can do that, okay? That should put all your contacts in the proper sequence. And then they do have this short name format that you can select, which really has little to do with that. But what it does do, if, for example, you pick first name, last initial as your choice there, where that makes a difference is in your text messages. In the messages area, and you're looking to see who the message is from, that short name would appear, or whichever one of these choices you pick will show up there. And so again, if you pick first name only, then it would just say, okay, this message is from Joe or John or Mary or whatever. So that's what that's for. Now, as far as the duplicates, we talked about duplicates. Groups, alas, I don't have a good answer for that. I sure wish that Apple would provide the same level of support for groups on iOS that it does in macOS, but so far, unless somebody knows something I don't, that's not there. You can use them, but you can't create them and manage them. Contact notes in iCloud sync with on my Mac. Again, if contacts are in multiple locations, they don't sync. If it says on my Mac, that's a problem. Okay. So now because I had several in the contacts area, I'm sorry, okay, relate that to other discussions where you are syncing with things, and that is calendars, reminders, notes, and so on. When you're checking off in iCloud what features you're using, or make sure you're consistent with that stuff. And if you have those other things, calendars or reminders or whatever, checked off in multiple places, you're likely to get confused as to where they are when you try to find them, and worry possibly about how come I can't find my note about such and so. Well, maybe you aren't looking at all notes, you're looking at just the Google version. So that's my thought there. And at this point, does anybody have any questions that have come up, Jada, on the contacts thing, or any additions to that?
Yes, Don Peacock, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hey, Ed, good morning.
Hi, Don.
You just showed your, if you go back one slide, maybe, your default account, it says iCloud. On mine, it says at Mac, my at Mac address, and the other choice is on my Mac. Those are the two choices for my default account. I'm running Catalina, the latest Catalina. It either says my Mac address or on my Mac.
Right.
So is that the same as yours that says iCloud?
Yeah, same basic thing. But the things that you have under all on my Mac, if you were to just click on that one choice,
okay, I missed.
Contacts.
Where do you see this?
Up on the left, with all the groups and everything else. I had to take a boiled down one, so I'm not displaying too many, because I got lots of groups. But at the top of your list of in the left-hand column of your contacts, you see all contacts. You've got iCloud followed by all the iCloud contacts.
I don't see that. I see my name is at the top. I don't see your whatever you're doing. I've got contacts open and it's on, one contact is selected. And on the left column, I show the alphabetical list of contacts. Am I missing something in the view?
Well, yeah, let me figure out how to get myself out of the full screen mode here and go to contacts. And now I've got a list that looks like this. Okay, here's the alphabetical list, but then I've got this gray column here. And that's where it says all contacts iCloud.
Okay, yeah,
iCloud.
I see that now. I was not viewing that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then down here, if I had any, see, here's some Gmail ones and whatever, but I don't have on my Mac because I don't have any contacts. They're just on my Mac. So that's why we're not seeing that. Okay.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you're looking at that area there, if you are selecting the all on my Mac group, those will not be synchronized with anything else. Yeah. They
Okay.
aren't going, you're not going to find them on your phone or your iPad or any other device. But the ones that are in the all iCloud group, you will be finding in those other places.
Okay. I don't see those choices. Oh, okay. All at Mac. Okay. Then it gives me an alphabetical list. Oh, and then
Yeah.
all on, okay. I just have a different, you must be on
No.
Big Sur.
No,
Maybe
I'm
place.
not. What I gave you a boiled down list because I didn't want to get mixed up with that
Yeah.
large group of groups that I had there.
Oh, okay.
Going back to here, I got all these groups going down here, which had nothing to do with the topic. But at the top, right up there, it says contact iCloud and then all iCloud.
Ah, okay.
If I scroll way down here, then I have Gmail and then all the Gmail ones.
Okay.
And
I have instead of where it says all contacts, mine says, my Mac address at
do you
Mac.
do you have all contacts at the top?
Yeah. But it does not say anything about iCloud, and I have selected as synced. Again,
Okay.
I'm looking at my Mac with Catalina.
That's right. That's sort of the way you have things identified. I just identify iCloud as that iCloud account.
Okay.
Like I gave it that name. You gave it the name of the email
Oh.
address.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay, you're welcome. So moving along. Anything else, by the way, Sheila? Does somebody else have anything?
I'm reading. Okay, some of the questions have been answered by what you were going over. So, okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
When I receive emails, I sometimes want to save the content in files or folders on my MacBook Air, but Google has me save such content to a Google file on the Google Drive. I guess my first recommendation here, I'll put it in the form of a recommendation, is that it would be my suggestion to use the Mac Mail app rather than using a Google app or just going to Google and through Safari. So if you have all of your email, if you have more than one, but if you have all of your email accounts hooked into the Mac Mail, then you do have an option available to save a one or more email, actual emails themselves in the PDF format, and then to save it wherever you'd like. Of course, you can also create in your mail. You can create mailboxes for different purposes, but the question had more to do with putting it in a file folder someplace. So what I would do in that case is to select the message or messages that you want to file away, and use the export as PDF, and then put the mail in whatever folder you'd like it. We have a question of, can you change the ringtone for FaceTime on an iPhone or iPad? And I think it's a neat idea. Too many times I've had incoming FaceTime and I don't know that it's FaceTime. I just pick it up and put it up to my ear, so whoever we're talking to is looking at my ear instead of me. So I think it's a nice idea, but no, I tried this. I couldn't find any way to do it. The thought that I had that I may use myself is that if I go down through my list of contacts, the people that are likely to call me with FaceTime, I could give them a different ringtone. So if you notice over here, when you're in the editing a contact, there's a thing that says ringtone, and you can pick any one from a large number of different ringtones, and you could assign a different FaceTime ringtone to the people that are most likely to be FaceTimers. So when you hear that call coming in, you're going to at least check first to say, hey, is this a FaceTime call? And others will just take you by surprise. So I don't have a better answer than that. This is an interesting and different sort of question, not very Mac specific, but it's something that maybe needs to be addressed very briefly. And then, what is HTML and how is it designed and used? Because we hear talk about HTML things frequently. Well, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it basically is used to format and render all internet pages. I think I can say all. Somebody may find exceptions to that. And there's these things called HTML tags, and they're within angle brackets. And over here, you can see a sample of it. There's a tag, and there's a tag, and there's a tag. And sort of this turns that particular thing on, and the one with a slash in front of it turns it off. And this is how they build all of the web pages that you see in Safari. And that's what is done in the background, and how they can make things look so very different. That's what HTML is all about. And I'm not an HTML programmer or a web page designer, so I can't go into it much more than that. But a quick search on the internet for HTML tutorial will show you lots of things.
Ed,
Yes.
we have a question related to a question that you were on a couple of slides back.
Okay.
Michael Sales, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, Ed.
Mike.
Yes, you referred to saving an email as a PDF via export, and I'm trying to see how to do that on, right now I have both my pad and my MacBook open, and I don't immediately see how to export as a PDF.
This would be a MacBook thing, okay, and not an iPad thing.
Okay, so MacBook.
But if
okay.
I have your message here, it's interesting. They happen to have your message right there in front of me.
Okay.
And if I select that message,
Yep.
and if I go to File, Export as PDF.
Let me see. Okay, File. I got you. Okay, great. So it's on the computer. It's not on the iPad. Understood.
Right.
Okay,
I haven't
thank
seen
you.
I haven't seen that on an iPad, but I have seen.
I don't think it is on the iPad. I certainly didn't run into it, but maybe I'm wrong. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Anything else, Sheeta?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. So somebody's got different messages on a Mac and on iDevices, and a question about sending images to Android users from the Mac. Okay. If you get different messages on the Mac and iDevices, it usually, in my experience, has to do with not having all the same things set up in the settings on one device or another. Somewhere up here is your Apple ID. This is in the message settings, the iMessage settings on the Mac. But enable the account, and then you got maybe multiple addresses for people to send messages to, and turn them all on. One would be the phone number, and another would be multiple different email addresses that people might use, and make sure that's all set up. And then be consistent with start new conversations from. You get to pick one of these choices up here that you can receive. And I tend to use the phone number down here because the non-Mac people may not be able to send text to me on an email address, but they can to a phone number. But just sort of be consistent on all of your devices to have things set up pretty much the same way. And that's likely to make sure that you're going to get all the messages in multiple places, not necessarily at the same time. It takes longer sometimes to get them on one device than on another. And I can't really explain that, but that's the way it is. Oh, and we do need to make sure that messages is set up in the iCloud settings as well, because it was just in recent couple of years that they started running messages through iCloud and synchronizing that way. As far as sending messages and photos on the Mac, just drag the photo into the message area, and that was worked for me. And sending things to an Android as well as to an iMessage account, I couldn't see any reason for that not to work. But it doesn't have the same little icon popping up that you do in an iOS device. So it's just, you get your photo from wherever. I just picked one out of Photos, and I clicked and dragged it over and dropped it right on in where the text was supposed to go, and off she went. And I checked, and the Android recipient did get it. Oops, I've got to go back to this mode here. Okay, reminders synced with iCloud on multiple devices don't all cancel when one cancels. And I guess I'm saying, is this consistent with everything, and do they cancel eventually? Because mine did. I tried doing this. I didn't have a problem with it, but does anybody else have an experience with that? I admit to not using the reminders function all that often. So this is kind of new for me, but I played around with it a bit, and I didn't see any difficulty with things canceling. If I cancel one, it took care of everything.
That's Mitch. I agree completely.
Thanks, Mitch. This was not a question, it's a new news item that just came through yesterday that I thought was worthy of mention. Apple is now coming up with a new feature to unlock your face recognition on your phone while you're wearing a mask. I thought that was kind of interesting. And the mechanism is to do it with a paired phone. You have to, or a paired watch. You have to have a watch. And if your watch is paired and unlocked, then they'll say, okay, we can now unlock this phone. Treat it as if we recognize your face. And they've gone as far as saying, first it has to be unlocked, so it's not still, so it is still attached to your wrist, and it has to be close, so that somebody can't be using your phone 10 feet away from you trying to unlock things while you're still wearing your watch. They're using the closeness based on the same type of the Bluetooth signal, and they've been using that in COVID tracking as well. That was an interesting thing. It's coming in iOS 14.5, I'm told.
Okay, James Cutler, do you have a question relating to what we were just talking about? Are you, no more?
Nope.
Hold on. Okay, Jim had his hand. Go ahead, Jim.
It was on the previous topic. And at this point, I can't even remember what it was. I tried to put the hand down, but I missed with my pointer.
Okay, all right, great. All right, Mitch.
Mitch, yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to chime in on the iOS 14.5. I work with the betas, and I have that working, and that is a phenomenal option. I just was using it today, had my mask on, my watch on, and it works flawlessly, and it's very secure.
That's great. Thanks, Mitch.
All right, all right. Alan, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. I have, when I delete a message from my iPhone, it doesn't delete on my iMac. It goes to read messages or old messages, but it doesn't actually delete. Then I have to go into my iMac and deleted from my iMac as well. Is there some inconsistency there? Am I not syncing things correctly, or what's going on?
I'm not sure. Now, when you say messages, are we talking email or text
Yes,
messages?
email.
Email messages. I've had a couple of instances where things don't become read messages. So you're saying that's what it is. You read it, but it doesn't appear in the read messages.
Well, when I delete it from my iPhone, by the way, it goes backwards as well. If I delete it from my iMac, it still shows up on my iPhone. So it's a two-way street on this delete. But anyway, when I delete a message on one platform, it does not delete on the other platform. It doesn't go into, deleted messages or read messages or whatever. It just shows up on old messages rather than new messages, but it doesn't go away completely.
Is it a POP account?
That's what I was going to ask. Is it a POP account?
I don't know what a POP account is.
Older email, most of them were in the old days were POP, POP, which stood for Post Office Protocol. And when that was the case, then what you're describing would happen. The newer, and it's been for several years now, but the newer email accounts are now IMAP, IMAP, and those seem to synchronize better. And it might be a POP account is the situation that you have.
What is a POP account, and how do I tell if it is, and how do I correct this whole problem altogether?
Let's see, who's got a good answer for how you tell that it is? Usually if you're looking in go ahead.
Is this something that we want to take offline and do later?
I think it's a good idea. Good
Okay.
idea.
All right, Alan, do you have access to the IO group, Naples IO group?
Yes, I do. I can ask.
Okay, yes, ask in there, and then we can follow up there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good point. Thanks, Sheeta.
You're welcome. All yours, Ed.
Thank you. Okay, somebody was talking about how to make files of photos of documents and model numbers and things like that. And I do that pretty often. Okay, I'll take a photo. It might be a serial number tag or driver's license or whatever. And then as shown over here on the right side, in photos, the file, I'll do an export. I'll select that photo and I'll say export and export one photo. And then that photo gets saved normally in a JPEG format, but you've got a couple of choices. And you specify where you want to put it. And you can file it away in any file or file folder that you have on your Mac or in iCloud Drive. And you can build up your collection of records that way. It's a very useful thing to do. Okay, there's a question, will Carbon Copy Cloner back up and clone my external hard drives? And although I don't have Carbon Copy Cloner, I did download it and play with it just enough to see, yeah, I would say definitely it does. You can see this is a window from Carbon Copy Cloner. It says click here to choose a source. That would be one of your external drives, or it could be your internal hard drive. And copy all the files and pick up your destination here. So it's back up from one drive to another drive. Obviously, you aren't going to back up to an active drive. But yes, you can do that. And we also know that when it's available, when SuperDuper's ready for Big Sur, it'll work the same way. So yes, you can do that. Multiple photo libraries. That was an interesting question for me because it's something that I have stayed away from doing because it always scared me. And there was a statement in the question that heard that Time Machine will not back up the photo library. According to something that I got on the internet from Apple support, they say, yes, it will. They say don't back it up to the same external drives where the library is. And then consider additional backup app too, maybe cloud-based or off-site backup. But back to the question of Time Machine, and maybe somebody, I know we've got lots of experts in this area, and I'm not one of them. If you are backing up your photo library to Time Machine, and if Time Machine is going out and backing things up every hour, if you add one photo to your library every hour, is that backing up all of your many gigabytes of library to the Time Machine backup that often? I guess I don't know. And if somebody knows, please chime in and let me know.
The answer is no. Time Machine only backs up recently changed information. So if you add 1 or 2 photos at 5 o'clock and then Time Machine backs up, Time Machine does not back up the entire library. It only backs up that library at that stage. So it doesn't do the whole thing. It just does it in stages. So
Okay.
no.
Good. So I didn't realize that it was smart enough to know getting down at the internals of the photo library, but that's good.
Yeah, we do have a question. Don Peacock, can you unmute yourself and ask your question about photos?
Hey, Ed, in iPhoto, I had the slide, the frame, the number, the metadata file name assigned by my Nikon on every photo. Is there any way to get photos to do the same thing? I don't put names on photos. But the camera assigns a name, a file name. Everyone is different.
Yeah. And I guess I don't know the answer to that because my photo library has been pretty much made up of things that came off of my iPhone or things that I've scanned in separately.
My understanding is that you cannot do that in photos. It was one of the limitations. So I don't know if that has changed, but you can certainly do that in a program like Adobe Bridge, but you can't do it in photos.
Okay, that's what I thought. I looked everywhere. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Ed, all yours.
Good, thanks. So my notes over on the left-hand side there, so consider additional backup app. Well, certainly we're talking about, Super Duper or Carbon Copy Cloner or something, and back things up that way. And cloud-based, we haven't had a lot of talk about those things, but I use one of them to back up, a third-party type deal where they'll back things up for me automatically every day, and it gets backed up in the cloud. And although it's not what I'm relying on, if I have to have an emergency recovery of something, it's there and it's off-site, so that in the event of fire, flood, or something that happened to destroy my local backup media, I've got something in the cloud that I can recover things from. That's just another thought in the backup area.
I'd like to make a comment about this photos thing.
Sure.
Because a photos database library can get really large. I have a couple of clients and their database is like 30 gigabytes right now. So if you're going to back that up somewhere, be aware of the size of your iPhotos or your photos library. And if you have Time Machine, and if you're doing an additional backup like Super Duper or Carbon Copy Cloner, I don't feel that you need to back it up anywhere else. because when these clients were doing these backups, they started putting Photos library backups everywhere. And they did not know which one Photos was using when Photos came on. So streamline it, back it up, carbon copy cloner, super duper, time machine. But once you start putting these libraries in other locations, you're going to have Photos tap one. And unless you tell Photos to tap it, you don't know which one Photos is choosing. So be careful when you're doing all of this, and streamline it as much as possible so that you don't have these redundancies, which could cause you to have Photos in one Photos library and not in another.
So you're saying to use one backup,
I'm
not
saying
many.
yes, I am, because you can end up creating multiple Photos libraries and not know that you're doing it. So if you have a backup like Super Duper, Carbon Copy Cloner, and the Time Machine, that means that you have two of the same backups regenerating all the time. So you really don't need to put another one somewhere else that, let's say you forget about it and then you see it, it's 20 gigabytes large and you wonder what's in it. Well, guess what? You got to go through it. So streamline that. Yeah, streamline it. All right, all yours, Ed.
Streamlining is always a good idea, Sheila. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you have files in documents in iCloud, but also in the laptop? And I sort of reluctantly say yes, but okay. Now, if you've got the iCloud syncing of documents and desktop turned on with iCloud, that means that basically all of your stuff is, all those documents in the documents folder and in the desktop are stored in iCloud, and basically it's an alias to those things living on your hard drive. And yes, you could pull something out of there and save it somewhere else on your local hard drive, but then you're not in sync any longer. So I wasn't, the question wasn't too specific exactly why you would want to do that, but either you turn that off and do your own manual syncing from local disk to iCloud drive, or you leave it on. And
Ed,
yes,
Ed, that's
sir.
not true.
Not true? Don't tell me.
No.
Where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong?
You went wrong, because there are two portions to this. Yes, you can have documents in iCloud, but also on the laptop, but you can also have documents just in iCloud. There are actually two pieces to this. You can either have iCloud separate, or you can have iCloud and desktop documents take care of the whole thing. So there's actually two parts to here, not one.
Okay, I'm with you on that. Certainly,
Okay.
you can have lots of things in iCloud that are not part of documents.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that. Yeah, of course you can do that. Yeah, and I do. I've got lots of things in the iCloud drive that are not part of my documents folder or my desktop folder. And I guess what I was referring to was the things that are in my documents, and in documents on iCloud. It's tougher to try to keep those things, to keep them separate. But yeah, you make a very good point. You can certainly do both.
All right, all yours.
Okay. Can I trim or edit my music library? And I got into this a little bit with Jim Corsica and asked Jim if he would chime in on this. Jim, are you there? Oh, Jim.
I don't see Jim here.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. Well.
Is he here? Jim. No, I don't see Jim here.
Okay. Well, I'll take it because I don't really know where to go with it. This is Phil Brown. Are you here? It was your question. No, Phil?
Well, The question came.
Hello, I'm here. Yep.
Okay, Phil, could you restate your question for us, please?
Okay. What I've got is the, I was switching from trying to upgrade to Big Sur on my 1917 or 1997, whatever it is, doesn't matter, 2017 iMac, and all at once it said there isn't enough room on your disk. So I went and hunted, did the search of what's on my disk, and it said I had a whole bunch of music on that. I thought, well, that's ridiculous because I've got some, an old music library that I've kept forever, but it was, I don't know, 22 gigabytes or something, and it used to be about 1 gigabyte. And so I went to look for it, and I found all kinds of videos and so on that had obviously been automatically downloaded by the music app. And I thought, well, that's easy. Someone suggested on our discussion group, why don't you just move all those onto a thumb drive and then upgrade your operating system to Big Sur, and then you can take back what you want. Well, I couldn't find the library. I couldn't find anything about it. And I don't, I don't use that library. Oh, that's not true. I use teeny segments of it occasionally. So I just would like to know about music libraries and where are they, and what can I do to stop it from growing?
Okay, when I looked at my music, I was just using the music, which used to be iTunes app, and they can go through and you can remove, you can delete individual tracks from it. And I'm not too sure, and I'm hoping somebody else here maybe can expand on that, because I just haven't done that. Do you have automatic videos coming in? I didn't know how that could happen.
I have no idea. I kept my, I'm an absolutely old, not quite as long as you have been, Ed, on Mac, but I ran a high school in 1990 off an old little Square SE. I don't know. I basically do 98% of my music now on Spotify, and I just use ours for Christmas music or stuff to record when we're driving from Canada to Florida.
Yeah, you have a music library stored somewhere because iTunes stored it. And as Ed said, there's a folder somewhere that has iTunes Media, and it has all of that information in it. And if you move that information out of that folder and delete it or move it somewhere else, it will not be part of your music library. But it is somewhere, and it's only there and growing because of what is in the folder.
Okay.
I think he's asking, where is that file? And that's in your music folder. Is that, am I correct?
Are you using iTunes to find it or to work with it, or are you using Apple Music? What app are you using? Because you can't.
As far as I know, iTunes was taken over by Apple Music, and whenever I click on the music icon, it goes to music, and there is this huge selection.
Okay. Okay. If you go to the preferences, it should tell you where that library is located, because it directs it to store all incoming music there. So if you want to take this offline and put it on Groups.io, we can expand more on the answers for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim Corsica has joined us, and he's got his hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Jim. Okay, Linda Hasson, you had a question. You've had your hand up for a while. Do you have a question for us?
My husband is using my device today because he has a question, and he's a member.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I like to report to you that my email was hacked last Friday, and some members, including today's speaker, Ed, got a sleazy, shady request in my name from my email. requesting.
Including
Yeah.
me.
And George, I suspected that, George. And so I would like to make sure everybody in our club that is on my list, there are several of you, should be aware of it. And also I have been able to get some help from my grandson, who is more computer savvy than I am. And we have changed the password and we have reworked the way the messages go. And I haven't found a better way to report this problem. And you may want to comment on this. That's one thing. The other thing is, I found some people who got the message from you, from our list, membership list, try to email me back. And that doesn't work because at the time you try to do that, the email was already in the hackers' hands. I found that texting is a much better, and all of it, as I thought some more about it, I began to realize perhaps, and you can comment on this, any one of you, that texting is really less vulnerable to hacking than email. And I've been able to communicate with my friends by texting. So these are the main points I want to share with you. And
can you hold up on that? We have a presentation we'd like to get through.
Very good. This is
okay.
what I hope you take this into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, we will. Before we end, we'll get to you, but we want to get through our presentation.
Right.
Super.
Okay, thank you.
Super.
All right, Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, now, see, Jim Corsica was in there. Jim, did you go to chime in on this question in the music library?
Mary, I thought you said Jim was here.
He was here. He's gone. He came back. He must be having problems.
Okay.
I just let him in. Let's see if he can chime in. Okay, he's no longer here. Can you? Yeah, he's here. Jim, are you here now?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry, I was having issues. I've had to restart a couple of times to get back. Clearly, I see my name on the screen. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Well, we had that question from Phil Brown about the trimming and editing his music library, and that was the one that I mentioned to you earlier, and thought that you might want to handle the question. I think we've addressed it, but I didn't know if you had your 2 cents that you wanted to put in.
No, I guess the only comment I wanted to make was that Phil mentioned a 21 gigabyte music library, and mine is 103 gigabytes. So I don't find it amazingly large. But my first suggestion was to use an external hard drive to keep his library. But I have to say that when I upgraded to Catalina, that's what I'm running now is Catalina. When I upgraded to Catalina, I had problems with Apple Music and syncing, and it kind of automatically started syncing into the cloud. And I got multiple playlists and I got deleted playlists, and it took me a while to unravel it. But my first suggestion for Phil would be to if he has an available external hard drive, or get one that's inexpensive, that he keep his music library exclusively on an external hard drive. If he's concerned about the 21 gigabytes of space on his Mac hard drive.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Was that Phil?
It was.
Okay, you're welcome, Phil. Let me know if you try that and you need some help, you can contact me again.
Thanks, Jim.
All right.
Okay, well, move along. It's an interesting question. How can I print 2 pages on one side of a sheet of paper in iOS, like I can in Mac OS with layout? So I had completely forgotten it was even possible in Mac OS. looking at the settings when you go to print something on the Mac, you've got a choice here called layout, and down there you can how many pages per sheet, and so you can have 2 or 3 or 4 pages and printed on one side of a piece of paper. As far as I could tell, I don't think you can do that with any iOS printing. I looked around and didn't see any way. And I guess I'm saying, okay, an iOS device can't do everything that a Mac can. That's why they've got 2 different categories of things. So, somebody knows different, please let me know, because I think it'd be a neat thing to be able to do. Can I change the signature block in iOS Mail as in Mac OS Mail? And kind of yes, but not in the same way that you asked. On an iOS device, in the settings, you go to Mail, and then you go to Signature, just kind of what we're showing over here. And you choose all accounts or per account. So if you have per account set up, then each one of your email accounts will appear in a list, and then you can specify the signature that you want to go with that email address. As far as changing the signature block sort of arbitrarily as you go, no, I don't believe there's any kind of a pop-up pull-down type of thing to let you say, I want signature 2 instead of signature 1 here. Again, if somebody has exception or more information, please let me know. But I think that the only choice you have is having separate signatures per email address. This is an interesting question. Flagged junk mail and flagging messages. There's 2 questions in one here. If you put a flag on junk, it's not going to show that will show the flag, but that junk email message will not show up in your junk folder. I'm sorry, excuse me, in your flag folder. Okay, so if you go and look at all the things you have flagged, the junk item will not be there, although there still is a flag on it in the junk folder. And off to the right here, what I've sort of played with, and you could certainly do, is you can create a smart mailbox called flagged junk or something like that. And if you create that and just set it up as shown here with messages flagged and messages in mailbox junk, then anything in your junk that you put flags on will also show up in this smart mailbox. That's the only way I know to get past that particular issue. Can't flag text messages. No, I don't know of any way to do that. I'm not sure, and I know why I'd want to, but I don't know of any way to put flags on text messages. This came in late, so I'm running at the end of my list too. But that word maybe that pops up in something that you start to put something in, or you've got a partial information in, and then Siri figures out that, oh yeah, maybe this is so and so, and that you get stuck with that. And I've seen it, but I couldn't explore it any. And does anybody else have thoughts on it? I guess the question was how to get rid of that maybe once you set that thing up. Does anybody have a suggestion on getting rid of the word maybe once that's happened? If not, I'll move on to the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
No, I was about to say I didn't see any. Go ahead.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps up. There was 2 or 3 others that came in really late, and I didn't put them up there. I thought that they probably would be covered by other things we talked about. And so I've gotten down to the end of the list, and I'll take any other questions that, how much time do we have left, Shada?
You have about 9 minutes.
Okay, so we can entertain any other questions. I see some hands up, so would you?
Okay. All right. Now, please make sure you have questions that can be answered. Thomas Hopkins, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, with regards to that hacked email, I just wanted to tell the Naples Mug Group that I got a message this morning about Jim Corsica doing a lecture on the 13th of February. And when I clicked on the email, my security program said, this is an unsafe site. We don't recommend using this site. On my iPad, I didn't get the message. And then I went on my computer and looked up the Naples Mug site, and I didn't get the message. And I'm running the security program on all three. And I thought I would just mention that in case anybody else got messages about Naples Mug Group. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Marilyn, can you ask your question?
Yes, my question is about the Apple TV. I stream movies, and the other night I was streaming the Metropolitan Opera. And I find that sometimes when I'm streaming movies or TV programs or other things, concerts, I have trouble getting the volume up. And I was wondering, is it because I don't have an attached outside speaker, or is there some command that I'm not doing correctly? You know, I can move the volume up a bit, but after a while, it just stops at a certain point.
Well, I'm supposed to be the answer man here, but I think the real answer man with Apple TV is Jim Corsica, who's right here. And I cannot answer that for you, Marilyn. I have not seen that problem myself. How about you, Jim?
Jim Corsica?
I'm sorry, I'm here. Marilyn, I'm sorry. I was looking for something to ask Ed, and I missed your question.
The question was, when I stream movies, or I was streaming the opera the other night, I have trouble getting the volume up on some things that I stream. It's, you know, I can change the volume on a regular TV just fine, and different cable and regular channels. But sometimes when I'm streaming a movie, the volume gets to a certain level and then I can't get it any louder.
Are you controlling the volume with your Apple remote?
Yeah, either way, with the remote or with the is there a way to tell only the Apple remote, or sometimes I'll just use the clicker for the TV, or sometimes I'll use the Apple remote. But even when I use the Apple remote, it still doesn't get any louder.
Are you using a sound bar?
No.
So you're talking about the volume that comes from the TV itself.
Right. It's different for TV programs than it is sometimes for streaming movies. Not all movies. Some are okay, some are not.
You know, I'm sorry, I have no answer for you, because I get my audio signal from the optical signal from a TV into a sound bar. So you know, sound bar typically has greater volume, but unfortunately, I think it's a characteristic of your television set. But you know, the Apple TV and your cable TV are different inputs, and so the information, the audio information that's being delivered to your TV is different because it's coming from different sources. My question is, when you're streaming, does the volume change from streamer to streamer? Say when you're on Hulu, is it different from when you're on Netflix? Or is it different within Netflix with different movies, that kind of thing?
It doesn't seem to change from the different, between like Prime and Netflix. It seems to change between what I'm streaming.
Oh.
Some things stream and I can control the volume, and some things that stream, I can only get to a certain level.
I'm sorry, I have no answer.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
I have the same problem on my computer that she's talking about having on her television. And I think there are some apps out there that you can boost your volume even higher with. But that's on the computer. I don't know about the television.
Thanks for your help, Jim.
Okay.
Ed, do you want to let Mr. Hassoun continue with his information?
I was going to wait for Jim, because you said you had something else. You had your hand up for something else, Jim?
Yeah, I don't know if you addressed it while I was having internet problems, Ed, but I asked you a question about having to supply my password to move something to the trash.
Yes, I did, and I did not address that. I was going to go dig around. Actually, I had sent out a query to somebody else to see if I could get feedback on that. So let's discuss that right now, because I guess I haven't had that.
Well, when I try to move a file to a trash, my laptop asks me to supply my password. Sometimes I get a box that asks for my fingerprint. I have a MacBook Pro, and it asks for my fingerprint, and that's fine because that's very fast. But having to supply my laptop password is for every single thing I want to trash is kind of a pain. And I was wondering if there was a workaround.
I've only experienced that when trashing something from my applications, that or some type of system folder. Other things I can trash without being asked for a password, but I sure don't know of anything, and I'd invite anybody else that has some information about that, but I can't help you with that one.
Jim, it's everything?
It's intermittent. Sometimes I get the fingerprint technology and sometimes I don't. When I don't, then I have to supply the full password.
But it's always asking for a password when you go to trash
in
something.
one way or another, it always asks for a password to move it to the trash. I looked to see if there was something in system preferences, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
Okay. I'll ask the internet.
Ask the internet. Good place for it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And now, certainly, Mr. Hassoun.
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Basically, as I said, I want the members who got this shady request to be aware of it and to ignore it, and also to discuss if you have something to say about the internet versus the email, which is less amenable, vulnerable to hacking. And the last question is, from your past experiences, many of you very rich backgrounds, how would I go about reporting, and to whom would I report this hacking? Thank you.
I've wondered about how to report things like that myself.
If it came into an Apple computer, you can forward it to spam@me.com and Apple will look into it. Otherwise, you just report it to your service provider and then they try to work with the security. We do have one more question before we end. Phil DuPont, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Thank you. I get all my wife's texts on my phone. Is there a way for me to stop that?
Probably. We had if I can go back several screens here, there's a place on your phone in the settings for messages. It will discuss where you can receive, what addresses you'll receive text from.
Yeah.
And if her phone number or whatever is there, you disable it. Is that what it's a phone number or an email address that she's getting?
Phone number.
Yeah. Now, do you have also your phone number in there to receive text to your phone? Do you have multiple choices there?
Probably.
Then are you,
Where are you talking about?
let's see if I can get the sample up here. But if it's in the settings, messages,
okay. Okay.
and there's a list of, if I went back to, there's a list of, here it is, right here. There's your Apple ID, but then you can be reached through messages at, and then there's a list of things there.
Okay.
And do you have her phone number as well as your own there, or your email addresses or whatever?
Yeah.
Showing up?
Yeah.
Both phone numbers
Uncheck
are
it.
there?
Yeah.
So if you uncheck the phone number you do not want to see, then you will not be getting her text messages anymore.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
She might file for divorce, but
All right, it's 12:47. George, all yours.
all right, folks, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed Ed's first meeting. I certainly did. Great meeting, Ed. Thank you
Nice
very
job,
much.
Ed.